Hey, what's party? Welcome back to News Dose. And it wasn't all that long ago when everybody seemingly was crucifying Nintendo for their Switch 2 reveal. And, well, I think some of that was merited. I also feel like some of it wasn't. Now, I'll explain why here in just a bit. But today, Nintendo really proved pretty much all of their doubters wrong. And I mean, just wow. This is beyond incredible, to say the least. In fact, we've never, ever seen something like this before, and really, it's not even close. The hype for the Switch 2 was absolutely legitimate. Now, does this excuse some of Nintendo's greed? Absolutely not, and we will talk about that as well, so do make sure to stay tuned. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go and get things kicked off, though, with a brand new game being Zelda Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. A lot of people do love these Hyrule Warrior games, and this series has really been one of the most successful Zelda spin-offs to date. So I do know there's some hype for this specific title, and, well, right now, it currently has a 79 overall score on Metacritic. Now, just to put that into perspective, this is technically the highest reviewed Hyrule Warriors game to date, but only just barely. Age of Calamity received a 78, and the original game that got the series kicked off got a 76. So, really, a 79 is, I'd say, right in line with what I think fans have come to expect for this series. But here's the thing. Age of Calamity, for as fun as it might have been, it was also a technical mess for the Switch 1, which really dampened the experience for a lot of players. However, that's where Imprisonment, I'd say, is a lot better, considering it is a Switch 2 launch. From what I've been hearing, its performance still isn't necessarily perfect, but it's also a lot more in line with what fans deserve. And that's the beauty of the Switch 2. The Switch 1 was an amazing console, and we can even argue it's one of the best consoles ever made. But it also kind of overstayed its welcome, and, we've all been waiting for that power jump, and here we are, and we're already seeing games like Age of Imprisonment take advantage of that extra horsepower. So all in all, if you like the Hyrule Warrior series, it sounds like this will be another fun time. Now, also got a new Xbox Game Pass update. It is that time of the month when they like to reveal their first wave of games, and here we are. November is a major month for them with the launch of Call of Duty Black Ops 7. Then there's Winter Burrow, Dead Static Drive, egging on Pigeon Simulator because why not? There's Whiskerwood, Void Train, Great God Grove, Relic Hunter's Drive, Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris, and last but not least, premium members will get Sniper Elite Resistance. Now, I will leave the card up on screen here for a moment so you can see which games are available for which tier, but obviously, the headline game is, of course, Call of Duty Black Ops 7. Even though Game Pass has risen in price, for better or worse, it's still kind of crazy to see Call of Duty in Game Pass. If you just want to play a single month of Call of Duty, then technically you could jump into Game Pass this month and play it at a cheaper price, considering it is a $70 game. And that doesn't even include its required online connectivity. So, quite honestly, I know it's easy to hate on Game Pass right now. They kind of did that to themselves, but this is the second good month in a row for Game Pass, with games like Ninja Gaiden 4, The Outer Worlds 2, and now Call of Duty Black Ops 7. That's 3 AAA Day 1 launches. So they are currently firing on all cylinders. Oh, and let's go and talk about Arc Raiders again. This game has been just blowing up online since its launch on October 30th. It's one of the most played games on Steam right now, and fans seem to adore it, considering it has a 90% approval rate. Well, apparently, critics are also loving it as well, because it also has an 87 overall score on Metacritic as we speak. So, this makes it the highest reviewed live service game of the year, and I think this could just be the beginning of a very, very successful game. We very well could still be talking about this game come next year, as long as it gets consistent updates, and that's rare in today's industry. Most live service games end up failing, but Arc Raiders seems to be one of those rare exceptions. And something that I will point out is that there is one storefront that seems to propel these type of games to that next level, and that's none other than Steam. I just feel like how they manage their store and how they highlight games, whether that be from reviews, with their front page, or even through Steam database, which gives us raw numbers to talk about, unlike what we see from other storefronts, helps get word of mouth out there. I mean, if you look at something like, let's say, Helldivers 2 as one such example, that's a PlayStation published game, but even they were not expecting the success that they got. And I think they would have been right if they would have only launched it on PlayStation. To me, I firmly believe that game wouldn't have been anywhere near as successful without Steam and the word of mouth that it created. And there is a reason that I'm pointing all this out, by the way, and that's because of our next topic is a little crazy to me. So, you know what? Let's just go and get into that. So, GameIndustry.biz posted a report about how 72% of developers who they polled believes that Steam is a monopoly on PC games, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, for one, if you want to complain about Steam, maybe all these other companies that are making their own storefronts should, make one that fans actually care about. But there's a reason that Steam is more popular. It's because they built up a reputation that fans actually like. Fans are voting with their wallets. Steam has generally been a very consumer-friendly storefront, thanks to Lord Gabbin. They've done a great job with their discounts. Steam has achievements, it has chats, it has reviews, communities, and really pretty much everything that you would want from a good storefront. In a lot of ways, you can very much make a case that they are the golden standard for this type of stuff. It is a gamer-first storefront and ecosystem, and I mean, just in terms of PC storefronts, we'll stick with that for today, but the only other place that I feel like is in, I'd say, good position is probably GOG. I do like what they do and what they stand for. And there are people that willingly choose them over Steam, and I think there's a good reason for that as well. But most other PC storefronts from these big companies haven't been very good, and they haven't stood for great things, whether that be the Epic Games Store, Ubisoft, the Microsoft Store, there was EA Origins there for a long time, and so on and so forth. Like, the thing is that all these other companies, they've tried to shoehorn gamers towards their own storefront because they don't like that cut that Valve requires for their games to be sold on Steam, but the data is pretty telling. I mean, EA is one such example. They left Steam for a long time, but they also eventually returned because Steam does a good job at making their games more successful. It's also the same reason that Xbox puts their games on Steam and even PlayStation now. I mean, the almighty exclusive company that is PlayStation eventually succumbed to Steam because it's a good thing for their company. So I'm just going to put it this way. This game industry would be a lot worse if it weren't for Steam. And I say that for both consumers and also for these developers that apparently considers it a monopoly. Okay, now let's go and get to the big story of the day, and that is in regards to Nintendo and the astronomical success that they are currently having. They just announced that the Switch 2 has already shipped 10.36 million units worldwide, which makes it by far the fastest selling console of all time. The previous fastest selling console was the PlayStation 5, which sold 7.8 million units in the same time frame. So we're talking about a 2+ million lead here, which is even crazier considering the Switch 2 hasn't even had its first holiday yet, which is very important because Nintendo also announced that because of these results and how fast the Switch 2 is selling, they're actually upping its yearly forecast by 4 million units. So the Switch 2 is already exceeding their expectations and really quite significantly at that. Previously, they were expecting 15 million for its first year, but now they're expecting 19 million units, and this still might be low expectations. Dr. Sakan Toto did point out that since sales in the second half of the year, which includes the Christmas shopping season, almost never fall below those of the first half, there is a strong likelihood that Nintendo will revise upward again. So yeah, I mean, they very well might surpass 20 million units when all said and done, which, if you think about that, that's in the ballpark of what the Xbox Series has sold for its first 5 years. I mean, that alone is kind of crazy to think about. But yes, exclusives do matter, and that's why fans go crazy over their consoles. I mean, earlier this year, they were crucified for some of their pricing, but I think they knew very well that people would still buy in because their brand power is just otherworldly strong. Now, I will talk more about that in a moment because there is definitely some wrong that comes with that, but speaking of which, Mario Kart World has sold 9.57 million units, though it is important to keep in mind that a lot of that comes from bundles, 8.1 million. In fact, they did announce that as well. And then there's Donkey Kong Bonanza, and it's already sold 3.49 million units. And we even recently learned that Pokemon Legends ZA sold 6 million units in its first week. So they already have three mega hits on their hand within just the first 5 months. And it just kind of feels like they're doing this casually on a regular basis. I mean, if you look at other AAA publishers, these numbers are not easy to come by. And the thing is that Nintendo is likely doing all this with a much smaller budget than them. So, I mean, this is all just super impressive. And that takes me to the point of this topic. There has been a lot of noise around the Switch 2 since it was first revealed. You know, a lot of people are not happy about some of the pricing, and I agree with that narrative, but also I'm going to say to a certain extent. So what I'm going to say is that what I agree with is that they are taking advantage of their fan base. I've talked about this in the past. I think some of the pricing for the Switch 2 game specifically is a little ridiculous, and when I say that, I'm specifically talking about things like Mario Kart World at $80. That very much was a move solely based on brand power. They knew people was going to pay that price, and I just feel like they were taking advantage of their loyal fan base when they upped it up to $80. And then also their Switch 2 edition games. I actually feel like this is even more egregious because there's no way games like Breath of the Wild in the year of 2025 should be priced as $70. I think that's absolutely absurd. And then even games like Switch 2 Tour, that game shouldn't have even cost anything. It should have been a pack-in game, but Nintendo got greedy. Now, I also feel like some of the accessories are priced a little high for what they are, but where I don't agree with the narrative online is the price for the Switch 2 itself. I've always felt, and I've said this from day number one, that $450 to $500 is a good price for what they're offering. And the reason I say that is because I know firsthand how expensive modern-day handhelds are. I mean, just look at the recently released Xbox Ally X as one such example. That's $1,000. And even the cheaper version, I believe that's $600. So other than the Steam Deck, the Switch 2 is one of the most affordable handhelds on the market, and I think in terms of the power and all the features that the Switch 2 includes, and really just all the exclusives that it will eventually have, and already kind of has as is, I just feel like this is a good price. So I do feel like there are nuances to this topic, and that's something that I wanted to highlight. Because, the internet doesn't really handle nuance very well. The internet breeds this type of mentality that you're either on this side or that you're on that side. There's no middle ground in today's world, which is kind of sad, but yeah, that has plagued the Switch 2 discussion this year, and that's kind of why I wanted to touch upon that in this topic. I feel like Nintendo has proved a lot of doubters wrong, and I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Nintendo's brand power is just crazy, and the hype for this console was absolutely legitimate. Just record-breaking numbers, and they might hold this record for a long time to come. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.